Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome, dear students, to this class of morphology. Last time, in the previous class, we talked about the MLU, and we said that MLU stands for ratio of morphemes per word, or the meaning length of morphemes per an utterance. How many morphemes are there in a word? So, uh, but we need actually to know more about how to calculate the MLU, which is by counting the number of morphemes, right, in an utterance, and dividing by number of utterances or word forms. So it is, as we said last time, it is the number of morphemes divided by the number of word forms. Okay, so here, so let's take this example. They have been teaching languages for many years. If we look into this example, we find that they is one morpheme, have is one morpheme, being is one morpheme, teaching is two morphemes. It is the root teach plus the suffix ing. Languages, it is also two morphemes. It is the root language and the plural as suffix. We have four, which is one morpheme, many, one morpheme, and years, it is two morphemes. It is the root year as well as the plural as suffix. So the total number, if we look into this, we find that the total number of the let's say of the morphemes is 11. So we have 11 morphemes divided by the number of word forms, which is 6. So the MLU is 1.8. So here the MLU, the calculation of the MLU is 1.8. So if we look into 1.8, we find that this language actually belongs to here polysynthetic, synthetic, analytic, isolating. Since it is 1.8, we can say that it is an analytic, right? So, and English here is an analytic language. So this is how we calculate the number of morphemes by the number of word forms. Now here we have in front of us, we have a kind of example on the status and the state of suffix affixes in general in words and how they can attach to these words. So we look into these classes or parts of speech as the nouns, the verbs, adjectives here, and adverbs. So here, the main goal for this is to know the mechanism of affixation. So if we look into the nouns, for example, we find that for the nouns, we have the affixes it may have, ity, mentness, shin, and so on and so forth. The verb ate, phi, eyes, nen. For the affixes, it can take for the inflectional changes. We have the plural like chair, chairs, possessive like chair, chairs, man, mans, and so on and so forth. For the verbs, for the inflectional and derivational, we find that it takes the ed as well as the ing. Is there any syntactic position for the nouns? Yes, they may follow a determiner or a determiner in an adjective, as in the big chair, my first car, and so on and so forth. So the fourth, this is the noun, right? And it's preceded by a determiner and an adjective. The same applies to verbs. They follow the to, right? The infinitival to, as in to play, to terrify. Also, they may follow an auxiliary as in should play, can play, and so on and so forth. If we move now to adjectives, also as part of speech, they can be categorized with affixes or suffixes like able, id, ed, ish, if, as in sandy, hairy, oily, and so on and so forth. While adverbs, they usually have the suffix li, as in slowly, occasionally, terribly. Uh, when they get inflected or derived, they fall within the comparative and the superlative patterns, which are the er as in short, shorter, and ist as in tall, tallest. While adverbs, they have nothing here. The syntactic position for the adjectives is that they appear between a determiner and a noun, as in the big car, my first car, and also they appear after verbs like seem, okay, seem, turn, appear, uh, copula, I mean, be verbs, and so on and so forth. The chair seemed big, okay. The let's say the body turned red, became red, and so on and so forth. While adverbs appear after the verb, he did it slowly. So as we know from grammar, that the adverbs modify verbs, right? So this is very important. But not only verbs, they modify everything except for the noun, which is modified by the adjective. So this is typically the situation for the status of adjectives. Now we move to chapter two, which is basic concepts, right? Here in morphology, in order to provide the proper analysis for the morphological representation of the language, whether in the lexicon, in the spoken forms, utterances, and so on and so forth. We need to have the basic concepts or the basic tools that enable us to provide such an analysis. So let's begin with the most problematic thing in these concepts, which is the notion word. So what is a word? The notion word actually needs to be revisited because in order to know what the notion word is, we need to know the paradigm of the language in general and whether it is proper to say a word or we need to revise this notion. Generally speaking, a word is the sequence of letters between two blanks. So here when we talk about letters, blanks, here we talk about orthography. We talk about orthography. We do not talk about utterances, right? We talk about written format of the language. Some properties of words, they cannot be broken up. The word cannot be broken up. So here we say the famous painter, that's fine, but we cannot say the paint with a brush as in with painter. So here despite the fact that we know that this error belongs to painter, but the orthography of this language cannot be, let's say, uh, cannot be okay if we use such kind of division like this. Pauses. What about pauses? When we produce the language, when we use the utterances, are pauses or do they need to be restricted? The answer is yes. Here, for example, we say you belong to me, right? So this is informative and the listeners can understand me. But when we say you belong to me, to mean that be long is belong. So this is also problematic. So we cannot we cannot pause at the oral level. We cannot pause between within the words themselves. So to be let's say, to be understood properly, I have to say, you belong to me. Here, I make a pause between to and me because both are two separate and autonomous forms. But with you be belong to me, that would be misleading and ambiguous. So we have to avoid it. For example, here we have two forms, and these two forms, I mean, three sentences, three patterns, right? So here we have A and we have B. Here, the prediction of such sentences is determined by the pattern of pause that I have. Now I will read like a robot in a machine style. After reading, maybe that would be hard or difficult to perceive what I have said. So, for example, when I say the good can decay many ways, the good can decay many ways, the good can decay many ways, if I keep reading and producing such sentences in a kind of machine style, maybe that would be hard to know what I mean by the listeners. I mean, but if I make the proper pauses, maybe the difference between the two sentences in A and B would be clear. So the good can decay many ways. The good here, phrase or constituent, can decay is another constituent, many ways another constituent. So the pauses here, right, between good and can or decay and many would make a good reflection for the sentence. Uh, the sentence in B, the good candy, so I pause here, the good candy came anyways, right? The good candy came, the good candy came anyways. So here we notice that here the pattern of pause does determine the meaning and the processing, the perception of the sentence. The same applies to two sentences in two. It's hard to recognize speech. 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 If I keep also saying or producing this sentence many times, no difference would be clear. But if I use the proper pause, I think that would be clear. So it's hard to recognize speech. It's hard to recognize speech. So it's hard to recognize speech, right? Or it's hard to recognize speech. So we have a proper, or it's hard to recognize speech. It's hard, pause, to a nice beach with a complement, a nice beach, preceded by a pause, and two is preceded by another pause. So here we have this fine distinction, sorry, distinction between the two sentences. So the reading of sentence one, it's hard to recognize speech. The second is it's hard to recognize speech. So the difference would be clear. Sentence number three, the stuff he knows can lead to problems. The stuff he knows can lead to problems. The stuff he knows can lead to problems. The same problem. But when we use the proper pause, that would be also clear. So we say the stuff he knows, pause here, can lead to problems. So here we have the pause, we know, and the stuff he knows can lead to problems. So here we know we have a complex sentence that needs to be taken care of in terms of pauses. So we say the stuff he knows can lead to problems. So also the meaning is determined by the pattern of pause that we have. Uh, let's have a quick look here in terms of the some languages in terms of how morphology is maintained. So we have transfixation, where it applies to Arabic. The base consists of the root, and as in kataba here, and we have a kind of templatic vowel insertion applies to the word. So for kataba, we have the insertion of kutiba, right? And then vowel, 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 vowel. Here, the insertion of vowels determines the part of speech template or form. And this would be provided in details in the coming classes. Other ways of dealing with other ways of dealing with morphology is maybe called subtraction. In subtraction, we have a kind of signaling of a morphological relationship by deleting. So in Arabic and some similar languages, there is a kind of intervocalic changes. But in subtraction, we have deletion of a whole segment, as in a language called Murli, where we have the neon, for example, which is lamb. uh, the plural formation is maintained by the deletion of the na, and wawuk, white heron, wau, where here na deletes in one, and here in two it is the sa deletes. On yit becomes on yi, so we have ta deletes, right? And rotten warrior, which is roti, and here we have the deletes. And then we have a kind of consonant that deletes, right? When when it is in the final position of the word, in the final position of the word. So actually, here we talk about different mechanisms of how morphology deals with certain phenomena like this. Now we move to the notion l'esteem. So what does it mean to know a word or l'esteem? First of all, as we all know, that the relationship between the form and meaning is a kind of arbitrary relationship in the sense that the words are symbols with no idiosyncratic content indicating the meaning. So it is a kind of convention made by people to have this symbol referring to a certain entity. So this arbitrary pairing of sound and meaning uh, for the sake of minimal form can stand alone as an utterance. The evidence for this is when we look into different languages like English, French, German, Russian, Hebrew, Arabic, Korean, Mandarin. We find that in these languages, and of course all languages, the meaning of shajara or tree differs depending upon the language itself. While in English it is tree, in French it is arbre, in German it is baumberry, in Russian it is derevo, in Hebrew it is horse, in Arabic it is shajara, in Korean it is namo, in Mandarin it is shu. We find that we have a variety of symbols indicating to the word to this entity, right, which is called shajara. So this provides evidence that the relationship is arbitrary, and there is no, as I said, there is no meaning, idiosyncratic content between the symbol and the entity. Now we move to the notion lexeme. What is a lexeme? So in a lexeme, dear students, we have the notion forms of a word that can take on while being the same word. So, for example, when we have in the dictionary, for example, we have in the dictionary sing, we have sang, we have song, we have singer, we have sings, right? We have singing, and all of these, it's still a verb. The verb sing remains a verb. So this alternation of the form of the same verb, which is sing, right? This alternation of the form is maintained and caused, triggered, motivated by inflectional morphology. So there is a kind of fixed form, right? And this form can take different forms in the dictionary and in the speech, and this variation is maintained by inflection or inflectional morphology. If in order to get a broader, let's say, landscape or picture for the notion lexeme, we have the notion paradigm. Paradigm is paradigm. When we talk about paradigmatic relationship or syntagmatic relationship, on the other hand, so in a paradigm, we have a group of inflected words that are formed with a particular base, like in child, children, drive, drives, driving, drove, driven. So this is called a paradigm. This is called a paradigm. In the paradigm, dear students, we have each specific item that is called a word form. So out of drive, we have lexeme drive. We have the lexeme drive, which is right, or a drive like this to refer to its abstract form. We come up with drive, which is in the present simple, drives with the third person singular, driving as in is driving, drove, driven, and so on and so forth. So we have a word form. So the word forms within a paradigm are the same word, i.e., um, to the same lexeme, right? So this idea is supported by the idea that the inflection does not really change meaning. It doesn't change the meaning. Instead of saying that the numbers of a paradigm are the same word, we say that they all realize or instantiate the same lexeme. وبالتالي the lexeme walk is realized by the forms walk, walks, walking, walked. So the lexeme, as I said, is a kind of abstract because it lives in the lexicon. Once it's produced, once it's uttered, it becomes a word form because it undergoes the inflectional operations at the case level, number level, tense level, mood level, gender level, aspect level, and so on and so forth. So here let's have an example like this taken from Latin. We know that Latin is a dead language, and it is a highly inflectional language also. We have here in front of us a data set or problem set, and in this problem set we have two dimensions. I said the horizontal dimension, which reflects number, and we have the vertical dimension, which reflects case. So for every data, we have to show that how these two dimensions co-occur to explain the production of a certain form. Here, dear students, this is a representation of a paradigm. We have at the horizontal level, we have, as I said, number, singular, plural. And for the vertical, we have the nominative, accusative, genitive, dative, ablative, and so on and so forth. So these are case patterns, and the horizontal ones are number patterns or inflectional levels. So for the nominative, for example, for the nominative singular, we have insula, which means طبعا island here. Insula, nominative singular, جزيرة, it's like this, right? In Arabic, insulae for the plural. For the accusative is insulam, singular, insulas, plural. In the genitive case, it's insulae, insularum. For the dative, it is insulae, insulis, and for the ablative, it's insula and insulis. So according to this data, we can come up with the notion that a certain lexeme has different forms that are inflectionally motivated or changed. Here in the data in front of us, we have the case and the number that play or that come into play to change this lexeme, which is insula. So the lexeme here is insula, and this lexeme has different variations or forms in the paradigm. So we say that the word the form insula is lexeme, that is abstract. It has no features. It has no, case features, number features, or anything. It is in the mind. Once produced, it undergoes this type of inflectional changes. This inflectional change is represented via number and case in this data. So here we say that insula is the lexeme, while these forms are word forms. So this is how, dear students, we come up with the notion paradigm in the language. So the morphological relationships in general, we say that the first relationship is inflection, where the paradigm is reflected, and we have the see here we have a paradigmatic relationship, and we have word formation where we have lexeme formation. We have different lexemes, and in this formation we have actually word families. So we have drive. Under drive, we have drove, driven, and so on. Under driver, we have drivers. So we have two different things. And another type of word formation style is the so-called compounding. So compounding is a kind of relationship that is maintained via derivation. Now, let's move to citation form. In the language, when you say a citation form, what do you mean by citation form? For each lexeme, we said the lexeme that is the abstract, for each lexeme, there is usually a citation form. What is a citation form? It is a form that we look up in a dictionary. Typically, when we go to the dictionary, we look into citation form. In the dictionary. So for nouns, مثلا, in English, the citation form is the singular. So it is highly unlikely that I look for the meaning of children under children. Rather, I go to the form child, which is the citation form. For the verbs, it is the infinitive: be, go, am, went. It is not the present, right? It is the infinitival. In Arabic, at the same time, so the citation form of the verb, it is the singular, the third person singular perfective, like kataba. So if we go to an Arabic dictionary, we check the meaning by kataba, right? By kataba, despite the fact some would say no, we find it under ka, ta, pa, طبعا reflecting another theory as a kind of prosodic theory. Now, content words versus function words. Content words, the words that are like nouns, verbs, adjectives. They have lexical meaning. They have content, right? They bear meaning, semantic features, and they are open class. When I say they are open class, I mean they are subject to borrowing. They are subject to borrowing. Okay, so when we look into the borrowed forms in any language, we find that content words occupy the highest rate of the borrowed forms. Function words, they have no lexical meaning, right? But they add meaning to the form or constituent or phrase because they serve grammatical functions like conjunctions, prepositions, articles, pronouns, and so on and so forth. They are closed, as we said, in terms also of ish, in terms of borrowing also. So here, the form borrowing I can apply to both the content as well as the function words. So here, as we said, the kinds of morphological relationship, as we said, it is inflectional as well as derivational. We have in the inflectional, we have lexemes as well as word forms in the paradigm. In the derivation, we have lexemes working together. Thank you for listening.